Yo, what's up, Guardians? Today we're going to be doing a different type of video. Today, I'm going to go over my key bindings on Destiny 2 on PC. About a little over a week ago now, cross-save was enabled, and I immediately swapped over to PC. Very excited, and later this weekend, hopefully, I should have a video kind of documenting my first week on PC, but we'll look forward to that later. So today I just want to go over my key bindings. These are pretty much set in stone. There's a couple of things that may change in the future, and I'll alert you to those when I go over them. So to start with controls, so if you've never played PC, there's two sorts of sensitivities essentially. There's your mouse sensitivity, or there's your look sensitivity in a game, your actual sensitivity in a game, and then there's your actual mouse's sensitivity outside of the game. So like that's which is your DPI. Basically most people play on either 400 DPI or 800 DPI. I play on 400 DPI, so my look sensitivity is slightly higher. I'm at an 8 right now. It feels pretty good, honestly. And then for my ADS modifier, most people probably play this on 1.0. This is basically when you aim down sight with your weapon, the change in sensitivity from your look sensitivity. So I have mine slightly lower just so I can be a little bit more accurate when I'm aiming my guns. However, putting this at 1.0 is perfectly reasonable because then your sensitivities don't change between your look and your ADS. Your hip fire basically and your ADS. And then I would not recommend going above 1.0 because then you're all of a sudden changing from the way you look in hip fire basically to your ADS becoming faster, which would probably mean you're less accurate. But these are kind of preferential things. Again, make sure you know what your DPI is so that you can adjust your look sensitivity accordingly. Vertical inversion, horizontal inversion, I don't play inverted. If you do, that's fine. Aim smoothing, I have this turned off because I don't want anything messing with the precision of a mouse, essentially. And I don't want the game messing with my precision aiming with a mouse. So let's go to key mappings. This is all pretty basic, I think. Move forward, WASD. Highlight player, we have it on H right now. You never use this. So emotes, I have them basically on the WASD of the other side of the board where it's I, J, K, and L. On my keyboard, I have arrow keys there, so it's really easy for me to tell. It's pretty much like having a D-pad in Destiny on a controller. Push to talk T, return to orbit O, screenshot, fine. Fire, obviously, with the left mouse click, reload, pretty obvious. Melee, I have bound to the front of my mouse, and the reason I do this is so that I can instantly click on it when I'm in a panic situation or I need to pop it really fast. I don't have to reach for a key on my keyboard. For a lot of these keys, for a lot of these character keys, you're going to want them either on your mouse or close to your WASD. And the reason for this is basically so that you can click them really quickly, because obviously this is a Twitch shooter type thing. So this is a Twitch shooter game, you want to be able to react fast. So melee bound to the front mouse button on my mouse, and then hold to zoom over toggle. Hold to zoom just feels more comfortable. Light attack, heavy attack with the swords. Block, I just use the melee button from earlier because obviously you can't melee with a sword, you just attack with it. Jump spacebar, hold to sprint with shift, and then for crouch, I actually have both of them set. So C is for just tapping it when I want to slide, and then I also have toggle crouch, which basically means you click once and you sit in a crouch and you don't have to hold the button, whereas hold to crouch you have to hold it. So I use control for toggle crouch so that if I need to crouch, like to go off the radar or something, I can just tap it and then focus back on moving and aiming rather than holding a button. Class ability, so this is your rifts, your barricades, or your dodges. I have it on E, again, really easy to click, really close to my WASD. Pretty comfortable, I will say on Hunter, it means that I can't hit D and E at the same time. However, I can just move my mouse the direction that I want to roll, so it's fine. Air move is X. This one's probably one of the uncomfortable ones I mentioned earlier that I may change. However, there's so few movements in the game that apply to this air move. It's like Icarus Dash on the Warlock. It's the dive on the Warlock. So there's only a few things that it applies to. So I may change this, but going forward, X is pretty much where I'm keeping it. Interact on F. Yet again, another one I may change. It's just a really annoying to try and move around while hitting the F key, because hitting D is very difficult at that point. So right now it's on F. It may move to Q, and I may swap it. Essentially just swap these two, so I can hit Q with my ring finger, and then F would be the super. So yes, Q is my super. Grenade, the bottom mouse melee button. So I have two mouse buttons, and essentially the front one is my melee, and the back one is my grenade. Again, you want this stuff really close to your WASD or on your mouse so you can do it really quickly. For weapons, basically, I don't feel, coming from controller to keyboard, I've never felt comfortable hitting the number keys and reaching that far for number keys to switch weapons, and so instead of using a scroll wheel to just like swap through all of my guns and accidentally basically pass one, and like if I'm swapping from my kinetic to my heavy, for example, or swapping from my kinetic to my energy, if I used the scroll wheel and pushed too far, I would go from my kinetic to my heavy, which would obviously not be very good. So we actually did something. So for kinetic weapon, basically if I scroll up on my mouse, it swaps to my kinetic, and if I'm already on my kinetic, it doesn't do anything. So just doing that motion of scrolling up, it will swap to my kinetic and stay on my kinetic if I keep scrolling. Same for the energy, however, it's down this time, like it's down. So when I want to pull out my energy, I just pull down on my scroll wheel, and if I want to swap to my kinetic, I push up. And then finally for power, I just click the scroll wheel. This is one of the changes that I personally made just because I don't feel comfortable hitting the number keys while in combat. It's just too far. I have small hands. It's too far for me to reach. Switch weapon, obviously I don't use this. I just use the scroll wheel. For vehicles, you may want to copy these. These are pretty... Basically, apparently so I got these keybinds from Gigs. And the reason is because the base keybinds for vehicles apparently don't feel very smooth. I swapped these literally as soon as I got on PC, so I actually haven't played with the default ones, but apparently the default ones don't feel very comfortable, so using these keybinds makes it feel as smooth a transition from controller to keyboard and mouse as possible, so I highly suggest these. And then for HUD and stuff like that, it's just some basic stuff. This is where I use my number keys. Basically, this is to open all of my character screens, like Triumph's character inventory, things like that. I just use the number keys. So that's really useful for me, and it makes it so that in combat, I never have to reach up to those number keys, which is really great. And then some other stuff there. Not too important. These can kind of be whatever you want them to be. For video, I play on 1080p just because... I play on 1080p just because I don't care too much about going any higher. Full screen just because it's the smooth, it just feels the nicest. VSync, turn this off. It definitely doesn't help with your frame rate and stuff, and obviously you want as good a frame rate as possible. Frame rate, for frame rate cap, I just disabled this. You can obviously, if you want to just play at 60, you can cap it at like 60, cap it at 120, cap it at 140, whatever you want to do. Field of view, I play at max field of view just so I can see as much as possible on my screen. I think this is very important. On Destiny on console, I think it's somewhere in the low to mid 70s. I thought it was like 72, I think. So bumping this up lets you see a lot more of your screen. However, it does make things appear further away than they actually are. So for example, your aim may be thrown off. The one thing I will say with field of view is as soon as you get on, pick one, whether that be max, whether that be slightly lower than max, whatever you want, just make sure to pick one and stick with it. Because the way field of view works, when you change it, it's going to change the way, change where things appear on your screen, and that's going to affect your muscle memory when you've been shooting a gun on your PC for a few months, and then all of a sudden changing it, it's going to affect your muscle memory and affect your aim, because things are going to appear at different distances than they actually are. For graphics, let's see, there's nothing too crazy here. Shadow quality, just turn this to lowest, And then for foliage view distance, I turned it to low. These are some things that can just help your frame rate. Most of this stuff the game is just going to determine for you. Most of this stuff the game is just going to determine for you based on the power of your PC. But I do suggest lowering your shadow quality and lowering your foliage distance as well as your environmental distance. These are some things you can lower just to get better frame rates. In the future, motion blur, turn this off. This essentially gives you a blur when you move across the screen really fast, and it's going to make it so that you miss shots. It's going to make it so that you don't see enemies that you should see. It's really bad. Just turn motion blur off. Just turn it off. Wind impulse, this is basically the wind particles that appear on your screen. Whether or not, if you want less particles on your screen, you can turn this off, less things to focus on. But it does create probably creates a slightly more immersive feel with it on. Sound, these are all just make these whatever you want based on your headphones and things like that, based on whatever you play on, whether that be stereo or an actual headset. Just make sure these are comfortable and you're not killing your ears, and you're also able to hear the game. I will say keep dialogue and the overall sound similar so that you can actually hear when characters are telling you things in game, whether that be Shax is saying something to you, or Devram K saying something to you, or you're trying to hear what they're saying in a cinematic cutscene. Chat volume, mute volume. Most of the time you're going to be in a Discord call probably, but if you do use these, just again, make them set to whatever you want. Team voice channel, opt into this when playing solo. I have it opt in when solo. This overall is just a way to talk to players. Let's say you're in comp or something like that. Push to talk you probably want on so that you're not ruining the experience of others. For gameplay, set the reticle location to PC default, because that'll actually set it to the center of your screen. On console default, it sets it slightly below the center of the screen. I don't know why it does that, but for some reason it does, so definitely go PC default. Again, helmet and stuff like that. Reticle color, it's up to you. You can make it something like a white, where it's not very, it doesn't stand out, doesn't catch your attention. I've heard that players like to use white because it's something that their brain won't focus on when playing the game, and they won't get tunnel vision on it. However, a bright color also makes it so that you can easily see where your reticle is located on your screen. So that's, again, a personal preference type thing. Let's see, anything else here? All of this seems to be personal preference type stuff. FPS display, turn this on so that you can see your frame rate. Mine up here obviously is over 300, that's just because we're in a menu screen. Mine normally dips to about usually over 100, usually up to 130, depending on what I'm doing. I didn't mess with any of this except for these things at the bottom, which turn to automatically opt in. That way you're basically getting messages from people. You can turn whisper chat to friends and Fireteam just so that you don't get messages from people calling you like a scrub or being rude to you. However, these other ones like team chat, local chat, and clan chat, you probably want to opt in automatically to all of these. That way you can just see people's messages in case they're trying to invite you to some sort of activity. Now, accessibility, I do play on a colorblind setting. The reason I do this is not because I'm actually colorblind. No, that's not the case. The reason I do this is more so because it changes the radar in PvP to a yellow, which makes it stand out more, and it's much easier to see rather than that light red. I didn't like the light red, and I realized I was actually I wasn't really reading my radar, and I wasn't seeing enemies on my radar that I should have seen. So I changed this so I could get the yellow radar. It does make green armor brown, which is really ugly, but yeah, it happens. HUD opacity I have on low, subtitles is up to you, but I have this on low so that you can kind of see through it. And that's it for settings. So hope you guys enjoyed the Keybinds setup and stuff. Couple of other things to keep track of. Just make sure that you don't have something like aim accelerate or mouse acceleration turned on, because that basically means that your mouse speeds up as you move it, which obviously you don't want when aiming. So make sure those things are set. But yeah, those are my Keybinds. For the most part, pretty much set in stone. Again, F and Q may change. There may be a new X key, but maybe a new air move key, but not for the time being. So I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in another video. Definitely on PC.